Hey everybody, and welcome to the Alabama Take. I'm your host, Corey Hanna. On this week's episode, I'll be talking with Andrew Nelson from the band Great Peacock. So I like to start off talking about how I met my guests. So I think I met you probably, let's say 2006 or 7-ish. I was playing in a band called Lauderdale. You were playing in West Floyd and the Daisy Cutters. And that was you and Blunt, who's now, both of you guys make up the bulk of Great Peacock. Because you guys started out, just the two of you.
Yeah.
So that's how we met, right? Somewhere around in that time frame. And we were playing basically whenever we could get weekends together. We would do Auburn, Birmingham. Did we do Tuscaloosa? I don't know. Who knows? We did several places together.
I wish I could remember the year.
Yeah. It was sometime in there because I quit in 2008.
It would have been 06 or 07 then.
Yeah.
It was probably 07. My guess is 07.
Probably.
Because I just moved to Nashville in 06, so
Okay.
probably by the end of 06 I was playing with Wes.
Okay. Because I remember, I think Wes maybe sent us a message or something and was like, hey, let's try to get some weekends together. And I didn't know who Wes was or anything. And then I think we had a mutual friend, or have a mutual friend named Jenny Davis.
Mm-hmm.
And was like, hey, I'm going to put you guys in touch.
She was dating Heath Haynes.
Yeah. Yeah, and she knew Blunt. And then
I used to go see Heath Haynes at Layla's all the time.
Okay.
Before Lower Broad became what it is now. Before it became the bachelorette capital of the world.
Right. So yeah, that's how we met up. We had a bunch of good times back then.
The most righteous after party I ever went to we must have played Sheffield at that place in Sheffield. I can't remember the name of it.
Old Town Tavern
in Sheffield. Yeah, we went to somebody's house afterwards. So it was weird because it was, we're all adults post college trying to want to be rock stars, and somebody's parents were gone or something. Like it was like a high school style party or something. Like this person was like, I don't think she lived with her parents.
Yeah.
She was she was in her 20s, and she was like, but my parents are gone and they have a pool. And so I feel like everyone that was at the show and everyone hip in Sheffield or
ended up there,
or everyone hip from Florence that might have been in Sheffield. Yeah, right. I think there were more people at the party than the show.
That's usually how things went back then.
And that was a wild pool party. It was really wild.
That's funny because I didn't go to that. There were
you missed it. It was like Can't Hardly Wait the movie. It was literally like
20-year-olds,
but with drugs and alcohol.
So that might have been one of those Shotgun Lover shows. So after the Daisy Cutters dissolved, there were 4 of you guys from that band that basically started Shotgun Lover, right?
Yeah.
So that might have been a Shotgun Lover show. I remember there was one where I was working a football game or something. I don't know. I shot high school football for years. So it might have been one of those nights where I couldn't make it.
That would make sense.
So that's a possibility. I do remember Nathan texting me and saying that you guys had broke down on the way in and were trying to get to the show and et cetera. That could have been that night. But yeah, I remember seeing you guys play over there a couple times for sure.
Mm-hmm.
After the Daisy
Old
Cutters.
Town Tavern. I think that was the only place we played. I think that was one of the only venues in the Shoals.
That was really for a while. It was like the corner bar where it was sort of known as the musicians bar.
Mm-hmm.
That's where all the musicians would go and hang out when they weren't playing. There were other restaurant style bars that would have music, but it was all cover bands.
Yeah.
Old Town Tavern was
usually a dude with an acoustic guitar playing Jimmy Buffett.
Yeah.
Which I love.
Sure.
I'm not going to put that down. So
the joke in town is it's either Mustang Sally or Brown Eyed Girl.
Yeah,
which I guess could be said for most towns, but Mustang Sally originated there in the Shoals.
Of course, Wilson Pickett.
Yeah, so yeah, that was Old Town Tavern for sure. That was the place to be for a while. That was where any smaller touring bands came through. That's where they got.
And now it's East 116.
116 in
116
Florence. Yeah, those
East Mobile.
John Paul White and Ben Tanner and Will Trapp run that.
We played there once. That was I enjoyed it.
That was a fun show.
I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, because you guys actually got there were.
I met Shauna for the first time.
Yeah,
that night.
yeah. There was. I remember like Florence, the Shoals area is really fickle about touring bands. Like sometimes they treat them really great, and sometimes it's just like they'll just be 30 people in a room just standing there. But I do remember, like, you guys got people to actually sing along with Desert Lark. I was like, you won this room. You won people when the Shoals over, because that was, like, not a thing that really happens.
Yeah, so Great Peacocks played the Shoals area. We played there once, and we played a record store once.
Yeah.
What was the name of the record store?
Pegasus.
Pegasus, that's right, Pegasus. So
they had the
concerts in the back of the...
Pegasus Garage out in the back of the...
And that was fun. It was a little ill-attended, but I forgot who we played with. It was someone local. I don't think it was the Pollies.
Was it the Bear, maybe? Did y'all do that one?
No.
Maybe it was the Pollies.
Or maybe it was an early adaptation of Belladere. I don't know.
Could have been.
I can't remember.
I remember the show.
I remember when I met Dylan LeBlanc that night.
Okay.
He was there hanging out.
Yeah. I do remember because you guys had, I think you had steel and fiddle that night.
Yeah, we did have, we had pedal steel that night. I'm sorry, I just remember.
Yeah.
I specifically remember because it was Brett Resnick.
Yeah, okay.
I got some good stories about Brett Resnick.
Well, let him roll whenever you feel like it. If you find the appropriate
He probably
time.
wouldn't appreciate me telling him.
Yeah, that was a good show. That was a fun room. I missed that room. A lot of good shows back there. You could get maybe 100 people in there.
You know, what's interesting is having played both of the venues we just mentioned only once, I liked the Pegasus Garage. Like, if John Paul White, you hear this, I'm sorry. I like the Pegasus Garage more because it just felt like a rock show.
Yeah. I mean, it was literally a garage.
It was a garage, and it was cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't like it if I wanted. There's certain kind of music I would probably prefer, 116 East Mobile over.
Sure.
I'm sure I'd like I've never been to a rock show at 116 East Mobile. I need to, which is funny. It's so close. I don't know why I don't ever drive down.
It's fun.
To go to a show.
I say that, but like the last few years I lived in the Shoals, I became more of a hermit, so I didn't get out as much. So like, I basically called them event shows. I got out to see you guys, and the Glory Fires came through and played, and then Chris Porter before he passed.
Yeah.
The last time I saw him was at a show there at 116, and there were maybe 20 people there.
That's a cool memory, though, that you'll have that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I talked about it with Jay Burgess in another episode of the podcast, and that was the last time I saw him. I almost didn't go. He texted me and was like, hey, come out and see us.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, man, I'd love to. I'm really tired. And he was like, I'll buy you a beer or whatever. Just being Chris, that sort of thing. And I was like, I'm going to feel like a dick if I don't go. Uh-huh. And I dragged myself out. And now I'm really glad that I went because it was the last time I saw him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good room. It sounds good in there, and
that hit everyone hard.
Yeah,
because I didn't know Chris that well.
Yeah,
In fact, the first time I met Chris, he gave me like a compliment and a put down in the same sentence, sort of kind of way. He was like, man, really nice to meet you, man. All I ever fucking hear right now is Great Peacock. And I was like, well, thanks, man. That's awesome. He had that way about him, you know what I mean? But it was very charming.
Yeah.
It was very charming. And I didn't know him that well, but I remember being very affected by his death.
Yeah. Because you knew everybody that knew him. And it's there's been people that have passed that I didn't really know. And I felt the same way.
Our whole band was, I know. And then... I think it's on a certain level for us in that scene that on the musician side of it, it was also kind of like, that could have been me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's...
so maybe that's why it affected us more, too?
For sure.
Obviously there's this loss of him, which is the most important thing. But, yeah, it kind of reconfirmed your own fears of what you do for a living. Yeah.
I remember waking up that morning and seeing the news, and you're like, this is not... the first thing you want to read when you wake up, and it's not how you expect to start out your day. And then you just live with that the rest of the day. And then I don't know, it was terrible. And like you said, it affected, because we all know most of the same people.
Yeah.
I mean, there's obviously people that that I don't know, et cetera, et cetera. But I feel like everybody knew Chris. That was just the way he was. He never met a stranger.
Yeah.
So if you only met him once, you knew Chris. Like, you got to know Chris.
Yeah. He had a lot of that, like, just a little bit of time I spent with him. Yeah. Those are some things, like, I was sort of jealous of. Like, I wish I was more like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so, yeah, he was, yeah.
Everything was larger than life with him. To me. Like, because he was, about 17 feet tall. But the way he would tell stories, too, like, he could... to me, it always felt like he was probably exaggerating a little. And, like, in terms of if he would tell you, like, about a show they played or whatever.
Yeah.
But that was part of the charm, I think. Of
And then he makes, arguably his best album.
Yeah.
And, and get to live to see it.
Yeah, it took me a while to be able to listen to that one. One of the first episodes of this podcast I recorded was with Jay Burgess, and the record had just come out, and I couldn't listen to it. I just didn't. I wasn't in the right frame of mind. But I did listen to it several months after it was released, and I was glad I did because it's a beautiful record, and it's not like anything that he had ever done.
Yeah,
it was a nice way to go out. To me, it was kind of like one of the records he always wanted to make. I feel like he was trying to make that record with the Pollies when they did their EP together, but the way that the songwriting and the production and everything on the final record, it was it was a good way to go out.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so let's talk. We'll go through a few things with the band. Correct me if I'm wrong, but did Great Peacock start out like sort of on a lark? Because I feel like I remember the first post that you guys ever did was just the two of you with an acoustic guitar, and you're like, hey, this is kind of... It felt to me like, and I don't remember if you said it or if I just inferred it, that like you were sort of poking at the Americana genre, just even with the name of the band and like the way that Blunt was dressed. And you were like, hey, we're going to do these demos. Because you had just come from a loud rock band, right?
Yeah.
So
that's true. It's very true.
Okay.
It was... It was, yeah. It not even specifically maybe Americana, because we can't even define that. We don't know what that is. But the emergence of folk music at the time, but it's like, wasn't, really full.
Right.
What we think of folk. It was just sort of a, with Fleet Foxes and The Head and the Heart and all these bands that are fantastic. I love all these bands, and I'm a huge fan of them. But yeah, it was a little bit of a pick at it.
Sure,
it was a pick. Yeah, we were having fun.
Yeah, but then I remember having the conversation. Maybe I had the conversation with you. I don't remember. I've had the conversation with someone about how I feel like you did that and you put up a couple of demos or whatever online, and then kind of started thinking, wait, we might be onto something. And I feel like you started taking yourselves a little more seriously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I remember when you recorded the EP and you sent me a link like before it was out, and I listened to it and it was like Take Me to the Mountain and stuff. I was like, holy shit, like these are serious, like fantastic songs. So at what point do you think you realized like, hey, we might be onto something with some of these?
The first point I realized we were onto something was on the first song we wrote called Desert Lark. Just because, we put that song up on Bandcamp and shared it with some friends, and just in the amount of quick, very positive, interested response from people that you have a hard time getting to come see you play at the local bar down the street, before somehow. So I knew something about it was something people connected to. So then Blunt and I kept writing songs in that vein, and it was really easy. It was really easy at that time. It's really a lot harder to write songs for us right now, for me anyway. It's a struggle. So we started writing songs like, and that's sort of the theme of sort of folk music in some weird way.
So like Family Home and Take Me to the Mountain and Desert Lark.
I remember when we had a song called Sailing, and I literally wrote the song because I said, we need a song about sailing. And so we wrote a song about sailing. Uh,
And then hashtag boat drinks was everywhere for a year or two.
And so we did that, and we went into the studio. A friend, Nick Worley, we got to use a studio that his father owned, and he was, helping us make this EP for next to nothing. And I probably still owe Nick, something. I owe him something for what he did for us. He pushed us in the direction of doing it. So we're doing that, and then by the time we got to mixing the EP, I remember I turned and looked at Blunt in the studio, and I just said, I think I want to do this for real. And he looked at me and said the same thing. He's like, yeah, me too. Let's do it for real.
Okay.
He's just like, fuck it, let's do it for real. So we did.
Awesome.
I was in school. I thought I was going to go back to school.
You were done with music.
I wanted to be a doctor. I was taking courses to kind of get myself, where I could at least apply for medical school. I was like, I'm done being poor. I found out I liked science, so I was like, oh, this is cool. I really liked anatomy a lot and physiology, so I was like, okay, I'll do that. And then I was 30, and now I'm, just as poor as I was then. We've made a little more progress. Put out a couple albums and whatnot, but yeah. That's how we got here.
So you did the first EP was with This Is American Music, and then you put out Making Ghost, your first full album, with them as well. And you started, I guess, expanding the sound. Like you had some electric instruments on the first EP, but then you brought in some more electric guitars.
We did not.
Did you not?
There is one electric guitar track that is extremely clean that's buried.
Okay.
But the rest, no. There's organ, which could count as an electric instrument, but there's no electric guitar. All the guitars are acoustic except for one clean, super clean, so clean that it's the cleanest Fender amp with the cleanest Fender Strat sound possible, and it's buried in the mix, and you can't even hear it.
Okay. So then, but you did bring in the electric guitars on Making Ghost, and I don't know why I'm digging in the weeds here, but I feel like even with that, you still played the shows with acoustic guitars, and then at some point, I remember seeing a picture of you guys at a show, and you had your telly out. I was like, they're switching gears here. What's happening?
Exactly what happened. It was more out of necessity. We had a cast of characters that we've in the band. We've had Dan Fernandez, who produced the album on electric guitar and pedal steel with us. We had Adam Stewart, our fiddle player. He would play with us. We had Brett Resnick on pedal steel. Who else? We had Clay Houle on guitar for a long time. And of course, Ben Cunningham played bass with us forever. So it was kind of like, when we first started off, it was kind of like who could play the gig.
Which lineup are we going to have?
Yeah, who could play the gig? And then it got to where it was eventually it became a 5-piece with Clay on the electric guitar, me and Blunt on acoustic. And we just didn't, sorry, I have to burp. We just didn't, I don't know. I guess we still thought of ourselves as like this duo, so we thought we had to play acoustic guitars.
Yeah.
And then Clay and us went our separate ways and split. So then it was like I was looking around Nashville trying to find people to play electric guitar with us because it had been so long for me that I thought I wasn't good enough to do it anymore. And so the process of emailing and talking to all these people about it and just not finding somebody that fit the bill. And then we had a show coming up, so just said, all right.
Fuck it. Let's do it.
We're going to play electric guitar. So we did, and it's been easier. And I miss having a big band, though.
Yeah.
Like, being a 4-piece to me feels limited on a lot of the songs. Sorry, that's the dog. Hopefully they're not, I
love puppies.
Yeah. She's sweet. She just likes to bark at everything that walks by the window. So I wish we could have a bigger band right now, but it's just easier to pay yourself.
Sure.
When there's one less mouth to feed. So.
Well, and if you can get the job done yourself on guitar, then you said, there's one less person you got to divide the money with.
Exactly. I really wish we had a keys player and a pedal steel player again.
Yeah.
But
I know you posted that just a couple nights ago about wishing you could take a pedal steel and fiddle player back out.
It would be fun to have a fiddle player as well again.
Yeah.
That would be fun. That was really fun because you could not. Adam was a real entertainer, and he would he could on his fiddle solo. He would inevitably walk to the front of the stage and like kind of put his body into it as well. So like people really dug it. People love it when people go off on a fiddle.
Yeah,
maybe that's just a Southern thing.
That's
I don't know if they do everywhere else, but yeah. Because everybody's used to the guitar player going off, but when you see a dude go off on the fiddle, you're just like, oh shucks, golly, know.
As someone who has attempted to pick one up and play it, I can appreciate the shit out of that. Because the fiddle is fucking hard to play.
Impossible.
I never could get it down. I tried.
Now, have you tried playing pedal steel?
I've tinkered with it.
Because that's just impossible to me. I don't know. You have to use your whole body. You have to use your knees,
there's
your
too
feet,
much going on.
your fingers. You have to have the most perfect touch.
Yeah, there's too much going on. Niles showed me a handful of little progressions years and years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I would go, we used to rehearse at his place, and every time I would go in, I would sit down and try that thing, and he's like, "You're almost there." I was like, "No, I'm not, dude. No, I'm not." It was just one of those where you hit, strum 3 or 4 of the strings, and then hit one of the pedals, and then do something with your fucking knee. I don't know. It was too much to it.
And it's one of those instruments that if you don't play it perfectly, it sounds terrible.
Yeah.
It's well, maybe pedal steel players that are really good know how to not play great and it still be passable, but anybody that's just touching the thing that already has a musical background, but they just go and touch the pedal steel for the first time, if you don't nail it, it sounds awful.
So I mentioned Niles a minute ago. He's in a band. We're still kind of in a band, whatever, called Lauderdale, and that's the band.
Great band.
That's the band that went out and we would do the shows with the Daisy Cutters back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So we brought in a guy named Daniel Stoddard who. He was just sort of learning the pedal steel. Mm-hmm. And we're like, well, just learn by fire if you want to and play with us. Because we wanted a guitar player to take out on the road anyway as well, because we were a 3-piece. So we're like, you can be the lead guitar, start learning the pedal steel, and we'll just throw you in there. So that's how that came to be. And then he ended up playing in basically every Shoals band in the area at the time. And it always amazed me. Daniel's one of those dudes who's never met an instrument he couldn't play.
Clay kind of was in the band because of Stoddard, because we had actually had some dates coming up, and I must have contacted Daniel 6 months, it was probably more like 3 or 4 months in advance for these dates, and he said he'd do them, of course, and then I kid you not, a week before, he's like, oh yeah, I can't do those, I got a gig with somebody else.
Oops.
And I was like, what the fuck? What the fuck, man?
Oops.
So I'm still holding a grudge, Stoddard.
If you're listening, buddy.
I'm just kidding. I love that guy.
Yeah.
But then I was in a pinch, and we were like, hey, Clay, you want to do it? And then, so Clay did it.
Nice. Well, at least he bailed you out.
He bailed us out. I remember that gig. Was it Willie's Locally Known? It was a 3 or 4 day run. Willie's Locally Known was the first night in Lexington, Kentucky.
I fully expected you to say that Stoddard bailed because he needed to do something on the farm.
You know what it might have been? It might have been that, actually.
Really?
It really might have.
Oh, yeah. That's when we get together to try to record stuff, it's like, oh man, driveway flooded. I can't get out. Because if you've been down his driveway, you know what it's like out there.
I'm jealous. I wish I had his property.
Yeah, when that driveway floods, you really don't get off that property.
No.
You got to wait for everything to dry out, and then he's going to reconfigure his whole driveway.
Yeah.
So that could have been it.
Maybe. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
You never know. There's always something in the farm out there. It's a lovely piece of land out there.
It is.
Where, speaking of, that's where we shot part of the video for the family home from the first EP. We shot part of that.
One plays a lonely old man.
Yeah. What did we call him? We called
Charlie Daniels.
Charlie Daniels on Spring Break.
On Spring Break. That's right.
We made Blunt up like an old man who was going out to the family farm to die. Basically.
It's kind of an accurate description of Blunt all the time, though. Charlie Daniels on Spring Break. I like that. I'm gonna call him that.
I remember there was one particular picture.
Instead of CDB, it's CDSB. CDSB.
There was one particular picture where he had some sort of, I want to say he had some farming equipment or something in his hand. And we were like, that was the epitome of Charlie Daniels Spring Break right there. I may have to dig that out and post that with the podcast when this goes live. So building on the electric guitar stuff that we were talking about, I think that probably fed a lot into how you guys went about making your new record that just came out.
Yeah, but
it's way more of a rock record than your other releases.
I guess so. People keep saying that.
No, I mean, it starts out like loud and heavy, and it's just drums and bass driven.
I guess the first song, yeah. Although we did opt on the very first track not to have an electric guitar solo. There's an organ solo.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess it's a rock and roll. I've always thought what we did was rock and roll, even in the EP.
Sure.
I always just considered it rock and roll.
It's a little more in your face, maybe.
Yeah, this is just, there's more electric guitars. It's fun.
I hear the heart of the highway beating to the rhythm of a song. Pumping blood, the wheels keep turning. Feeling free, the road goes on. You got to hide away. You got to hide. Got to hide away. You got to hide away.
Hey! Nothing influenced the album other than just picking what we thought were our best songs we had at the moment.
Yeah.
That's all we could do. I think the only track on the album that would be influenced by the electric guitar and had it in mind was a song called Take Me Down. It's a very sort of psychedelic, Neil Young kind of sounding song.
Yeah.
That's Neil Young meets Pink Floyd. And that was just because we had a melody. It's a one-verse song. There's only one verse to it. And we had that melody, and I couldn't write a chorus or anything. So we just came up with this chord progression for the end of the song and just said,
done.
We're just going to play guitar over it.
Yeah.
And it worked. And now it's fun because live, it's just like, now live we get to have this 7-minute version of it.
Yeah.
So,
So I just interviewed Tom Blankenship, who played bass on the record, and he told me a little bit about how that came to be. So at the time, you didn't have a bass player, but you were ready to make a record,
yeah,
and you just reached out to him.
Ben had just left the band, and we weren't really finding anybody. We had a buddy sit in with us for some shows, Jesse Baker. He plays in a band called Bird Talker. So actually, to bring this full circle, kind of weirdly enough, he plays in a band called Bird Talker, and they're managed by Nate, who is Joy Williams' husband.
Oh, from Civil Wars?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah, he played some shows. So we didn't find anybody, and then our producer Dex said he would just play the bass, but then our manager thought he could get Tom because one of his business partners is next door neighbors to Tom.
Okay.
But but they know each other via music.
Sure.
To, the music industry. So Dawson lived next to him. Dawson manages Moon Taxi. Well, co-manages Moon Taxi and some other bands like Roadkill Ghost Choir, who are great. So that's how we got Tom just to come down to the studio. And he was going to just come down, check it out, and maybe play a song. And then he liked the music, so he decided to stay.
That's what he said, yeah. He's like, I'll give you a couple days, like if we squeeze in what we can get or something like that.
Yeah. And he stayed, and 2 days, recorded everything.
Yeah.
We did all the songs in 2 days, basically. We had the studio booked for 4 days, and the last 2 days were spent doing just like little guitar tracks and maybe fixing a vocal part or something, and honestly just wasting a lot of time. I think
Well, it sounds like you got a shitload done in the first 2 days.
Yeah, honestly, we could have achieved so much more in those last 2 days. Look back and think about what we spent on the studio. And
it's a really full record, though. Like, if you got all, like, the majority of that done in 2 days, you put in a lot of damn work.
We only did, like, 2 or 3 takes of each song.
Yeah.
We knew what we were going to do. We had the arrangements down before. We really had some good pre-production time with our producer, Dex. So we knew how the songs were going to go.
So Tom said he didn't have demos or anything, so he just kind of learned them there. He said, he's like, I think Andrew would write out a chart really quickly and put it in front of me and run through it a couple times and then give it a go.
It was very much Muscle Shoals style. I mean, I would just write a number chart. I would do the Nashville number system, and we just I would play them all the song. I would sing it to everybody with the guitar one time, and of course Blunt and Nick already knew the song,
sure.
So But so Ralph on the keys, who's an amazing keyboardist.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff on there.
Yeah, he did a good job. And then Tom on bass, obviously. So I would just play it for everybody once. And then, Ralph and Tom are so good musicians that they just, with the chart, they just nailed it. You know what I mean? So we would just do 2 takes and be like, and we just knew, we were like, we can't foresee ourselves getting anything better than that take. Like, so why beat it into the ground?
Yeah.
Like, we have,
what's the point?
We have a backup, and we have, the one we want. So I don't, and if you got to be smart too, you got to be backing up your hard drives and all that stuff as well. So if you know you're safe, then just go with it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I asked him if there was anything in particular that stood out about that session. So what would you say stood out to you about making that record?
Worry. I was having the time of my life, and I was having so much fun. I didn't want it to end. I wanted to cut more songs. We just didn't have them to cut. I wanted to cut more songs. I wanted to stay in the studio. But honestly, just being worried that the record would fall flat. Not because the songs weren't good enough or the recordings. I just, it's just hard to grab people's attention these days. And I felt so proud of it. And to feel so proud of it, but just be worried that not enough people will hear it.
So the life of a musician. Basically what everybody feels like, I guess.
Yeah. But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was a ton of
Well, it
fun.
sounds like you guys had fun. Yeah, you can tell it on the record.
It was fun, I mean, like, I don't think anybody was smoking too much weed or drinking too much. Everyone was doing, maybe just enough of something to get just a little loose. But
Sure.
it was everyone who was feeling, focused, clear-headed. I don't think any booze would even come out until like 5 o'clock. You know what I mean? So it was just the right kind of party.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So do you think that you guys make Southern music? Would you classify it that way at all?
I call it rock and roll.
Yeah.
If other people want to call it Southern music, they can.
Yeah.
Because it makes sense, because we're from the South. All of us
Yeah.
are from the South. All of us are from Alabama in some way or the other. So yeah, I mean, it's funny because we're just now, the new album, you called it more rock and roll. We're just now starting to hear Southern rock.
Oh, really?
Like, I think Rolling Stone did this article, Rolling Stone Country did this little piece on us, and it was like, and it said like what they sound like, and it said festival ready Southern rock. And I was just like, whoa, that's weird. Never heard that one before. Because like, I was like, I'm not sitting there thinking of us sounding like, Skynyrd.
Yeah.
But, or even like nowadays, like Blackberry Smoke,
Yeah.
I like Blackberry Smoke and I love Skynyrd, but I've never thought of it sounding like that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think so either. The only reason I really asked that is because, I mean, I do think to me it's more of a rock record, but I think that's mostly because I know what the previous material sounded like. And it just seemed like the most logical evolution, because there's still some straight up country songs on the record.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a little more R&B, I think, almost really.
That was conscious. I did want that.
Okay. And that's,
I did want that.
And when you, to me, when I think R&B, I mostly think of like Southern music, like, Memphis and Muscle Shoals music.
Well, the best is an amalgamation of them all.
Sure.
That's what, and where you're from, that's the best thing about Muscle Shoals. It's
Right.
like, is it country? Is it funk? Is it R&B? It's like, yes, to all of the above.
Yeah.
It doesn't fucking matter.
Like it's got, specifically the Rattlesnake song, like it's got a little bit of the R&B, but it's got a little like rock. It's got a little bit of all that, I think.
Yeah, and we have a song on the album called Heartbreak Coming Down, and you could make a clear argument for me that it's a country song.
That could be a straight up, like take out the electric guitars, give it a fiddle and like an all acoustic treatment. That's a straight up country hit.
And you could also give me the same argument that it's an R&B song.
Yeah.
And I think either one could win.
Yeah.
I can hear that song. I mean, I think it's both. Or none of the above.
Don't tell me that you love me if you're going to tell me goodbye.
ever picture yourself like for instance that song, like I hear it one way and you hear it that way. Do you ever think, oh, if someone else took this song and wanted to cut it, like you'd let them do it, or do you? Because I've always felt like there are a couple of songs that people have done there in the Shoals in the last several years where if someone else were to cut this and like put it out, Nashville radio, it'd be a #1 hit.
Yeah.
Do you see, like, would you be okay with that sort of thing happening?
I'd be okay with anybody covering any of our songs doing any way they want to do them.
Yeah.
I'd be fine with any of that. I'd be fine with parody of our songs. It's not for me.
Yeah.
All I can do is do them the way I want to do them and hope that people like them. So, in fact, I think I would love to hear a parody of one of our songs. I think I would feel like then we finally made it,
Well, and I don't say that. That's not. I only say that because the people that, like the songs I was referring to, like Patrick McDonald and I have always thought if someone else took Dog Daly's song, She Has Her Moments, and cut it with Nashville musicians and put it out, that'd be a #1 song. Mm-hmm. Like the melody, the arrangement, everything about it. And that's not... Doc's version is, like, to me, the best version that will ever be. But in the same way, like, Doc's only going to get so much exposure. So I'm just thinking along in terms of when you hear a song and you see what it I don't know. I do a lot of that. What if someone else cut this? What if someone else cut that? Because I've heard stories of other people almost cutting Outfit by Jason Isbell before.
Yeah.
Where it could have been, like, before, like, obviously he's gotten much more popular the last few years.
I couldn't see that being a #1 hit on the country radio, though.
Not these days. But,
It's, well, and it's just, I mean, I could be wrong. Just because of the minor key element of the song and stuff. That's a damn good song, though. So, I mean, it might be his best song. He'd hate me for say that. But I don't know him, so... I mean,
I think he'd be fine with
that. I was living in Athens then, and that was my favorite era.
Yeah.
The truckers was, I lived in Athens in that era of the truckers, and to see them at the 40 Watt and at the Georgia Theater before it burnt down, and God, yeah. But no, I don't know if we have any songs like that. I don't know if we have any that could do that for.
That just stuck out to me though, because like when you said you think Heartbreak Coming Down could be an R&B song, like I feel like it could be a straight up #1 country hit if, like, somebody with a little more twang or even like a little more exposure or something got it. Like, it's just one of those. I feel like
maybe it could. I don't know. I'm sure
the royalties wouldn't hurt your feelings.
I mean, on any radio, yeah.
Right.
I would actually consider it an honor for anyone to do our songs, even if it's an artist I'm not going to listen to.
Sure.
I mean, I don't. Sometimes I feel like it's not like they're not things we own.
Yeah.
Once
you release them to the world, they're not for you anymore.
Well, not even that. I feel like writing them down is more like transcribing, like some old biblical scribe or something. It's like, it's not. I feel like it feels like something I discovered. It doesn't feel like I made up that song.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really totally feel like mine. I still deserve the intellectual, rights to monetize that, being that person that discovered that song, I still deserve that, and
Sure.
I'll fight for that right. But at the same time, it doesn't feel so precious that my view of those specific words and that specific BPM, with that specific melody, with that specific chord structure, it doesn't feel like so precious just to me that I'm the one that gets to decide that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I feel like anybody could do that.
Yeah. Let's take a time out for a few seconds and check out some promos from some other great podcasts.
Hey there, it's Allison Carter. I'm the host of the podcast, Not Your Little Lady. Each episode features a woman living in the South outside of socially accepted norms. Listen and relate as these women share stories about obstacles they faced and how it feels to come out on the other side. We talk about things that pissed us off, the booze we like to drink, and historical women who have made a difference. Through all this, we explore the importance of women owning their past, present, and future while keeping it light and funny. You can find episodes, which are released every other Wednesday, on most podcast listening apps or at notyourlittlelady.com. Be sure to follow the podcast on Twitter at ladiesofnyll and on Facebook and Instagram at notyourlittlelady. Happy listening, y'all.
Our favorite dive in Tuscaloosa has a new owner for the first time in almost 40 years. Egan's Bar has long been known for thick smoke, loud music, and a quirky band setup.
It's considered a badge of honor to the band to have people walk through the band to go to the restrooms.
We spent the better part of a week talking with the bar's regulars, and they did not hold back.
If you pick up a frat boy at Egan's, he doesn't expect you to call him the next day.
We've interviewed some of the most colorful people we've ever known.
I have been cross-dressing for almost 20 years now. Anybody who I whooped their asses back in the day, I'm friends with now.
And we got a little emotional with some of our best friends.
The love that we have for this place is just immense.
I see Egan's family more than I see my family. Roll Tide.
Produced by whereistheline.net and coming soon to the alabamatake.com.
Let's get away from the music for a second. Just on a personal level, I feel like sometimes you and I could probably be...
I am single, by the way, right now, if that's where we're going.
No.
I'm just kidding.
I feel like we're probably way more on the same wavelength, because I feel like sometimes you put things out into the internet just to see what kind of reaction you'll get, and I know I do that. Do you feel like that's something that you do?
It's the main reason I'm on Facebook. It's so funny. I had this conversation with Nick, our drummer, because he's not on Facebook anymore, and I've said, like, because I'm known among friends and Facebook followers as purposely having, I don't know if you could, I don't think I have rants. Do you think I have rants?
No. I wouldn't call them rants, but you were very opinionated about certain things.
Yeah. I like to think. I'll think about it before I post it for a long time.
See, my problem is I usually don't.
I'm definitely like, I'm going to be careful with what I say, because I never wanted to feel like it's like me being on somebody's team, or it's not about that. I feel like I want to have a clear manifestation of what my individual thoughts are on something, knowing that it's going to cause controversy, because I love to hear the responses. It's fun for me. It's so much fun because I don't take them personal.
Yeah.
And like when people say, also I've done that, and people have changed my particular opinion on something, or made me see it from a different opinion than I wasn't seeing it from before. So it's educational too, it helps me be a better person and see things a certain way. But yeah, sometimes I really like to just put them up there just to see what's going to happen.
I didn't know if that was me reading too much into something, but I feel like every once in a while I'm like, oh, he's doing this just to get a rise. Well,
I'm doing it because I honestly want to see an intelligent debate and opinions. And I even want to see the people that voice their opinion that say, I don't know and I don't have an answer, but this is what I think about that.
Yeah.
I do want to see that. I do want to see all the comments. And it does frustrate me when I do see some people that turn it into an argumentative thing, because that's not my intention for people to argue. But I do want to hear all the opinions.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I told our drummer Nick, I was like, that's the only reason, like, that's why I'm, and he's like, that's the reason I'm not on Facebook. He's like, I'm not on Facebook because of people like you, because I don't want to see that stuff, but I do. My favorite thing though, which I've done only a few times, is to really put something up there that's like, really juicy. Let people argue about it for like a day or two and then delete it. Delete the whole post. Just knowing that they're like so angry, they've spent all this time and put all this effort.
They're arguing with somebody they've never met, like mutual friends of yours, and they're waiting for that person to respond, and then they never get that satisfaction.
Yeah, and it's kind of sick and twisted on my part, because it does make me feel kind of powerful. And Facebook has given me a certain amount of power to do that, because at the end of the day, that's it's my post.
Sure.
I originated the post. I control it. So also But though on a healthy level too, sometimes I've done that and taken them down just because of the fact that the nature of the way people were arguing. I just said, no, it's best to move on.
Yeah.
This doesn't need to stay up
When you
here.
see people that you like on both sides and they're getting into it and they've never met each other and they're pissed and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and it's like, especially when you have friends that, or people, acquaintances, or people that you know, for the most part, their intentions are well-meaning, and for the most part, they're good people. But they like probably voted for they did vote for Donald Trump because they blatantly say it.
Yeah.
And you don't want them to look like the fool, but sometimes they do look like the fool on your news feed, and
I'm way more cautious now about what I post, especially if it's anything political. I've learned my lesson.
Yeah.
On that a few times, and there have been a couple of times where I would post something in a fit of rage, and 3 or 4 minutes later go in and delete it before anyone's had a chance to comment, and really get.
I've done that before where I deleted some stuff. Immediately, because I didn't feel like it was the format that represented the way for me to to convey it. I particularly like. See, what I'll do is, especially when it comes to political things, I don't ever post on a whim. I will wait and think about that.
My problem is the opposite. I'll just get pissed off and post something.
I will try to intellectualize that in my head. How do I want to say this? How do I want to be looked at? Also, how do I say this without being on a team or a side? And it's so interesting to post those sort of things. And you can post something where it's specifically about a single issue, and you have not stated, whether you're a liberal or conservative, Democrat, Republican. You haven't even stated if you're a moderate. You haven't stated what you are, and even your stance, a questioning of what is going on, maybe, or the system of one particular thing you're doing. It's just a questioning of the effectiveness of that. I had a specific post about healthcare about this once, and that one was really got like people up in arms. That one was my best one, probably, was that specific healthcare. I said, let's see if I can put this in Cliff Notes. I said, if you are someone that doesn't think everyone should have access to affordable healthcare, you're an asshole. That's just how it is. Now, see, I never said universal single-payer healthcare is the answer to that. I didn't say anything about a particular means to do that. I just said, what are your intentions about that? Because I will say I do support universal healthcare, but I knew that for me to get that point across would be more about asking what's in your heart. I thought that, and I still think that. I know, and I'm not for universal healthcare just because. I think we're at a place where it's just such an expensive. It's either that or we regulate it like the utility bill is regulated. Doctors have to get regulated. Mm-hmm. What you can charge for certain things. Everything has to be price controlled. It's impossible to have a free market on that. Sure. I don't see it working at all. Because it's the way it's working right now is just. It's not. I mean, it's not working. It's not working. That's just it. So that post really got a lot of people, but it was just so funny for people to go defend. They turned it into a conversation about why private healthcare is better than this, and I never said anything about that in my original post. Sure. I didn't want to say anything about it being, which one's better or which one works or how we do it. I just said, if you don't want everybody to have affordable access to healthcare, you're an asshole, which is a true statement I stand by to this day.
Sure.
I mean, just that.
So do you feel like, and you probably get a lot of this, like people that you meet once at a show might find you on Facebook and friend you, and then all of a sudden you've got people that you've met once and you don't really know commenting on your stuff. And do you ever think maybe I should tread lightly, or do you just like, fuck it, I don't care, it's my page, I'll say what I want?
Oh, definitely the latter. Definitely the latter. I mean, but in the same respect, there are people that like our band that I don't agree with their political opinions.
Sure.
People that like our band a lot. And I'm also not going to try to be like, distance myself from, like, say, like, you know, we don't condone that fan, or, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Because, like, I know I don't agree with what their political opinions are. But I also know that, like, my job is I will gladly give my opinion, my opinions,
Well,
which
and it's
can
not like you're
which can
posting this
be
stuff
which
on the
can be
Great
from the
Peacock
left
page.
and which can be from the right.
Sure.
Sometimes I don't agree with the left on things. That being said, you know, I'm not one of those people that thinks musicians shouldn't be political. I think, you know, you can do you. Whatever you is, you do you. I'm all about that. And I love it when musicians can effectively be political.
Yeah.
For a good change. I do love that, especially when it's effective.
Yeah.
But I also am not going to sit there and police our fan base and say, you know, just because you're conservative, we don't want you at our shows, or we don't want you, you know, posting about our band.
Sure.
We don't want you to be a representation of our band or something like that. Because at the end of the day, they're not. They're the representation of being a fan of our band.
Sure.
You know, they're not our band. So yeah,
That makes sense.
I don't feel like I have to cover up or sugarcoat, you know, for anybody. But
Well,
I'm also not going to cover up and sugarcoat what I want to say.
Right. And like I said, it's not like you're posting that stuff on behalf of Great Peacock. You're just like on your personal page. But I know, even in the very brief times I've spent playing with Lauderdale and stuff, like I would get friend requests from people I never met. And I know that they just knew me from being involved, because I was involved behind the scenes with some things, like early on helping, like, Corey Flagel and those guys at This Is American Music. I was never like officially like with the team or whatever you want to call it, but I was like emailing stuff out to blogs and this thing just real early on. And I knew that certain people were finding me on social media just because of like my association with music and things, or being like a guy that's known for, I guess, quote, being known for things, but putting videos of bands out on the internet.
Yeah.
And so I caught myself for a while like accepting most of those requests, and then after a certain point I just had to start shutting it down.
My rule is I want to feel like I've at least met you at one point.
Yeah.
So just because it feels, Blunt will just say confirm everybody because he's Blunt. He's just like, it doesn't fucking matter, man.
Because he's Cuddy Bear.
Yeah, he's Cuddy Bear. He's like, it doesn't fucking matter. I love everybody. Because there's a certain level of my own personal Facebook that feels private to me. Like, I also don't want to like just read everybody's, you know, status updates and stuff, people that I don't even know or met. So if I get a friend request and I don't know who it is, I always just look at mutual friends, and like if it's like one mutual friend, I'm like, I'll just ignore it.
Yeah.
But if it's like people that, you know, have a lot and I don't know if I met the person or not, if we have like at least 10 mutual friends, I'm gonna just say yeah.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So I don't know.
There's always the unfollow option.
There's always the hide and the unfollow option. Although I've done that to some friends when it came to their political posts. Just because I knew that there was nothing I could get out of my disagreement with them. I knew there was no room for conversation, so I just thought, okay.
I've done it because I wanted to remain friends with people.
Yeah.
And not having to see their Facebook posts every day makes me happier to see them in person sometimes.
Yeah, and because you're gonna see people's Facebook posts more than you're gonna see them in person. The average, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Unless you work with somebody or they're your family. So yeah, it's nice to not have the majority of what you associate that person with in your mind something that's divisive.
Yeah.
So I think that's great that you do that.
So I'm not trying to start a fight here, but
okay,
tell me what 2nd and 26 means to you.
What?
2nd and 26.
I don't know.
That was the down and distance on the overtime play that Alabama.
Oh God! See,
Alabama won the national championship.
I got that out of my memory. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, also you're not.
Are you talking about European football right now?
And it's only Bama fans that know.
What do I think?
2nd and 26.
I think this. Okay, we want to get controversial. This is what I think. I think Alabama beat us. I think it beat us. I think we let up on that one play, and that's how college football is. You can let up on one play. Do you think we could have played better in the second half of the game? We should have won. We should have won that game.
It was a hell of a game.
I do think Georgia was the better team
Yeah.
than Alabama was this year. From a sort of just objective standpoint of looking back. That being said, football isn't an objective thing, and you can't be objective about football. Kudos to Alabama when they beat us. It hurt. It still hurts. For me, it was just a huge honor for us to finally get to that game, because as a Georgia fan, somebody that didn't become a Georgia fan until they went to Georgia, I grew up an Alabama fan, and then I go to Georgia, and I keep my allegiance with my alma mater, and I became a huge Georgia fan. And somebody that became a Georgia fan in the Mark Richt era, just to get to that game was a big deal, because we'd never been to that game and thought we were going to be in that game so many times. We thought, yeah, this is our year. And I'm sure Alabama fans love to laugh about that. This is going to be our year. You know what I mean? They love to make fun of people that say that. This is going to be our year.
I mean, I try to be objective because, I like Kirby Smart. I hated to see him go to Georgia. Because I felt like he was the key to our defense for so long. But, I mean, I can't even be mad at that. Like, he put together a hell of a team. Well, I mean, he kind of inherited it. But he did a hell of a job with that team. And did a really good job. But I thought Bama was going to lose 3 or 4 games this year. I was just happy, like you. I was just happy to see him in the championship. I fully expected Georgia to win.
Here's my honest to goodness hot take, though. My honest to goodness hot take is that every team in the league has moments where calls go in their favor. Alabama seems to have them more than anybody else.
You might be right.
From what I consider an objective standpoint of watching so many SEC games.
I feel like
I don't think they've always had them that way. It's been the last sort of 8 years or so. It's been
that Nick Saban's been there.
Yeah,
we do get fucked quite a bit, but I feel like
the league office is in Birmingham.
Some of the
let's just note that.
I see that a lot on Twitter. Like a lot of people saying hey, I'll be sending my check, things like that. But I do feel like we get fucked quite a bit, but some of the pivotal ones.
You guys are going to get calls against you you're going to get calls against you, and there was a specific play in that game that was a pretty monumental play. If I remember, it was a punt. God, I need to go back and watch the game again.
So much of that game was a blur to me.
There was one specific. It was a personal foul call against Georgia. No, it was like somebody dropped the punt. I can't remember.
I'd have to go back.
That game had so many plays, and I can't remember specifically what that play was, but that was a clear play that changed the game.
I almost went to bed when they went to overtime. I was pissed.
And that game was clearly, that call was clearly on the basis of in favor.
Bama being Bama.
Bama. Nick always says best money paid. That's what he always says.
So he's a Roll Tide guy.
Yeah, and since we're talking about football, I got a chance to call Frank Keith, our bass player.
Yeah. We didn't even talk about him yet. So he came in after the
call
record
him
was made.
out for being. I like to call him Benedict Arnold because he went to Georgia, but grew up a Bama fan and still roots for Bama over Georgia. I don't trust people totally that do that don't root for their own alma mater. Also, I want to call out my cousin Tim Worley, who actually teaches at Penn State now, but he did his doctorate and his PhD and his graduate program at Georgia, his undergrad at Samford, grew up in Tuscaloosa, and has more ties to the University of Georgia, but still roots for the University of Alabama in football over the University of Georgia. So Tim Worley, that lives in State College, Pennsylvania, and Frank Keith, that lives in Kirkwood in Atlanta,
but Frank comes
are your
from
Benedict Arnolds for the day.
Frank comes from a long line of Bammers, though, right?
So what? So what? So what? I think Blunt's grandfather was a Bama fan, but they're Auburn. He's Auburn through and through.
Yeah, he and Wes both.
Yeah,
the whole family, I guess.
Yeah. I do love. I'm glad I wasn't at the game this year, but I do love seeing Georgia play in Jordan Hare. There's certain excitement, but this year I wouldn't. This past season, I don't think I would have liked that.
I texted Frank the other day, and when I told him I was coming to interview, I was like, "Is there anything in specific I should ask Andrew?" He's like, "No, not that I can think of." And he said, and then he quit back. He's like, "Leave me alone. I'm at shaky knees about to play a set," and like LOL or something like that. And then I said, "Okay," I said, "I am going to give him a little hell about Bama and Georgia." And he immediately wrote back and was like, "That was the most conflicted I've ever been in my entire life trying to watch that game."
Wow. Okay. See, I thought he was just like his heartfelt.
Yeah.
Although I think he did say something to me afterwards that like he felt like it was just Georgia's turn or something.
Yeah.
But nobody wants to win a game because you feel like it's your turn or your time. You want to win a game because you got the best team on the field.
Yeah, they'll get it. They'll get one in the next couple of years. Bama can't win a
next year. It's our year. It's our year. It's our year, Corey. It's our year.
Bama's every other year, so we got to see how the quarterback.
The best is when you hear the Kentucky fans say it's their year of football, or Mississippi State. You're always like, sorry, brother.
Sorry, guys.
It's never going to be your year.
Sorry, guys. Y'all don't have Kirby Smart
or a football program
ever. So
they can say the same thing about us about basketball. Yeah, big deal. I don't
true.
Care.
That's true. I couldn't tell you the last time I really paid attention to a college basketball game. So let's move on now to the Done Up Real Good section of the podcast.
All right.
So just tell me right now what's done up real good for you. It could be music, it could be TV, it could be an old TV show.
Define done up real good.
Like just anything that's just working for you right now. Like your favorite shit.
Grateful Dead.
Grateful Dead.
I did not become... I don't call myself a deadhead because...
That's not the answer I expected to come out of your mouth.
I always, I never disliked the Grateful Dead, but I really started liking the Dead about in my early 30s. I'm 34 now, so right around 30. And each year it gets increasingly more fanatical and really obsessive. So I can't, So I'm still not calling myself a Deadhead because, I never got to see them. I never got to... be a part of the scene. So I feel like being a Deadhead isn't just about the band. Being a Deadhead is about the scene. It's
the
about
experience,
the lot, the lifestyle, all that. So Grateful Dead is a huge part of my life right now. Very massive part of my life. There's a way specifically, which is funny because it almost coincides back to something you said earlier about me playing the electric guitar again. When I did, I decided I wanted to be like the best damn guitarist I could possibly be, that myself could be, which is not going to be that great compared to so many other players, but I'm going to be the best version of a guitar player that I can be. And I specifically wanted to learn how to play a lot more country guitar. And in the process of that, and then getting into the Dead, you start hearing how Jerry plays very similar to a country guitar player, and there's all these sort of half-step accidental notes that go, in between things like country does, and then you start to hear this sort of like even the jazz influence and the jazz influence on the country guitar playing and how it got to where it is. And so so the Dead is also just a means of better educating myself as a guitar player too. But then there's also just something about the overall feeling for me when you finally cross the line and become obsessed with them. It's like you really are crossing the line, and they become like the band you listen to the most.
They have never done it for me.
Yeah.
Never.
I understand.
Nothing ever clicked. I
totally understand.
Not that I ever really tried either, but it just...
It took trying for me.
You hear enough of it, it's like over the years, I'm like, okay, maybe it'll catch it, and it just never...
It took trying for me, but it's... I'm there now.
You're all in.
I'm all in.
You're there, done up real good for you right now.
Done up real good. What else is done up real good, man? There's so many things.
You could also sometimes, like if you put on your Sunday best and you're going out for the day or whatever, that could be done up real good. Like you got done up real good to go out. It's just a way of saying different things. Like, but we use it as in terms of what's done up real good for like, for me. And I've said this 1,000 times, REM is done up real good right now.
Yeah.
I can't get enough.
They're sort of having a sort of pop culture resurgence, I've noticed.
Yeah.
With at least people talking about them. And see, for me, I've always liked R.E.M., but I've never understood the fanaticism for them.
Yeah.
See, but I am a fan of R.E.M. and
Sure.
I do like them. It's not a thing where I'm like, oh, I dislike them.
Yeah.
You know, R.E.M. fans would hate me for this, but I mean, I don't care if it's one of their most commercial albums. Automatic for the People is just a fantastic album from start to finish. I love that album.
That's like that's the album that got me into R.E.M.
Yeah,
I was
can
in
see
high
that.
school, and I'd never liked them. I always thought they were stupid. And then they put out Automatic, and I guess it was the single for Drive came out before the record came out, and they put out the video, and it just caught me.
It's fantastic. Yeah. Night Swimming, God, I love that song.
Yeah. That's kind of what started the resurgence for me. Was back before Christmas, they put out all of those promotional videos when they were promoting the re-release of Automatic, the 25th anniversary. And I got obsessed with watching everything they put out, like all the little documentaries and stuff.
Yeah, they're cool. I always thought I like R.E.M. a lot, but I'll openly say this: I think they're slightly overrated.
That's fair. I think the Dead is slightly overrated.
You think the Dead is grossly overrated?
I'll say grossly. Yeah, that's probably a better.
I'm more
assessment.
from that era, man. I'm more on the Westerberg side.
Yeah,
you know, I know you can't really compare the Replacements to R.E.M., but I also am one of the few weirdos that might like Paul Westerberg's solo material more than the Replacements. Love the Replacements too, though. So
that's fair. So I did have one last question that I've been meaning to ask you for, I guess, as long as I've known you. What in the hell? Where did the name Uncle Kenny come from?
So I was actually about to tell you that I just really like the song "What's the Frequency, Kenneth?"
Oh,
because my first name's Kenneth.
Okay. Gotcha.
I go by Andrew.
Gotcha.
My first name's Kenneth. Andrew's my middle name. And so my college friends and roommates knew my first name was Kenneth. And they would just kind of if I got too drunk, describe maybe an alter ego. Like Kenny is the obnoxious, overly confident.
Niles' alter
Andrew.
ego is Kyle. He has
Kyle.
Kyle.
That makes me think of Kyle from South Park. But so then one particular friend would jokingly say that Mom, Uncle Kenny's drunk again. Say it like that, you know, I'm the creepy Uncle Kenny, which is funny because I actually have an Uncle Kenny. I have an Uncle Kenny.
I think if you're from Alabama at some point, I had a second cousin or somebody that was a Kenny.
And my Uncle Kenny lives in Tuscaloosa. He's lived in Tuscaloosa forever, even though they're from Mississippi. But I think he lives in Northport now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was an uncle. It was an uncle. It was a fucking uncle. He passed away.
Is that
when
a
I was
drink?
younger.
Is there a drink called a fucking uncle? Because we need to make a drink called the
We
fucking
should.
uncle.
It'd just be like bourbon and.
Oh yeah, it's definitely. It'd probably be like bourbon and some type of ice beer mixture. The fucking uncle.
It's a mixture of Natty Light and fucking Dickel or something.
Gotta be ice beer though. Gotta be ice beer.
That's true.
Bud Ice.
Natty Ice.
Bud Ice and Dickel. That's the fucking uncle. It's
We
Bud Ice and Dickel.
We just made a drink called the fucking uncle. Hashtag fucking uncle.
And if you have, any people that start, are listening to the show or start listening, this could be, y'all can have a drinking game where you take a shot of a fucking uncle every time somebody says fuck. There you go. You take a shot of a fucking uncle. That's Bud Ice, not Natty Ice. We're going Bud Ice on that.
Ice.
Bud Ice and George Dickel.
That sounds right. Or this is a new thing that a buddy of mine started. Jim Torres. He helped with the video for Family Home. We were texting a week or two ago, and I was like, hey, I'm having some whiskey or something. He was like, what are you drinking? I was like, the cheap shit. I had a bottle of Early Times or something.
Yeah,
and
I had some Early Times recently. It went down just fine.
It was fine. I've been making old fashions, but then I'll put just a little bit of LaCroix or whatever in it. LaCroix, however you say it. Just a little bit of lemon LaCroix.
Black Rocks.
Yeah, Black Rocks. And it's fucking delicious that way.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I was having that, and he referred to cheap whiskey as old underpants because we have a buddy that calls any cheap whiskey old underpants.
We always called it, for some reason, I don't know where the city came from, but it was like Blunt used to say it, or Wes or somebody. And we just refer to any really cheap drink. For some reason, we call it like, give me a bottle of your St. Louis Bastard. And we don't know where St. Louis came from or something. Like, give me a shot of your just cheapest St. Louis Bastard.
Yeah, there's a story somewhere that you just forgot it.
We actually had alcohol. We never mind. That's offensive. I can't say that. I can't tell you that term. We have some funny terms for alcohol. So being really drunk is being tater tossed. But there's some other terms about it that I just can't say because people would be so offended by them. So I want you people to like me.
We won't go there. All right, man. Well, this has been fun. Thanks for talking to me.
Anytime.
And y'all go buy the new Great Peacock record. It's out everywhere now. It's called Gran Pavo Real. Is that you say Real?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Real. Doesn't matter.
I'm from Alabama.
It means Great Peacock in Spanish.
Okay. Y'all go get that shit.
Please, I'm poor.
Thanks.
Thanks, Corey. Bye.
That'll do it for this episode. Please do me a favor and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Alabama Take, or check out thealabamatake.com. And be sure to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes if you like what we're doing.